Yeah, yeah. Elliot Hulse is one of my awakening guides, if you will. Just a guy who just like was fit and jacked, and at the same time very deep and philosophical. And I admired him because I felt like that was the entire package. And he had a video once about this kid asked him like, "My grandpa just wants to drink and party, and he's old and he's unhealthy, and then like he wants this for Christmas." He's like, "Bro, just give him a fucking beer."
Yes.
Like, why are you trying to, first of all, change him, and second of all, resist that? That's just not where he's at.
Well, in that case, like it's very situational. Like in the Sufism, they teach, to hold your whatever anger or feeling or desire and hold it in your hand and observe it before acting upon it. So, like in the event, let's say, using this beer example, like your grandpa wants a beer, you can take that. Maybe your instant inclination is to be like, no, like grandpa, that's bad for you. Like you shouldn't be doing this, killing you, whatever. And you just pause and you hold that, and you're like, okay, is this stone meant to be cast? And then you step out of it and you pull yourself out of the emotional reactivity and you just reflect for a moment. And then from that place, sometimes it's appropriate to cast a stone, and other times it's appropriate just to drop it on the ground and forget about it.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny that you say that because I grew up very empathic. I think it had to do with my grandma raising me and her being so old in my eyes, and she was always very. Or my mom told me, "It's like, hey, she's old. You gotta be like careful with her." So I think growing up, that really molded me to be very like, like, "Oh, like, are you okay? Is everything good? Like, let me like support you. I don't want to be a trouble to you at all." Like, very emotionally intelligent in that way to, not make my grandma suffer even more than she was being her age. Um, and so I never cast stones. I was always like easy to let it go up to the point where it just didn't serve me anymore. And it's actually kind of fun now to be like, you know what? This stone needs to be fucking thrown, and then throwing it. And then like now I feel like actual balance of like I assessed, I knew what was okay, what was right, and and it was okay to do what I used to think was inappropriate or the wrong thing. So I think there's a duality of that, right? Some people may be over exerting, throwing stones every fucking time or chance they get. And then I think I was on the other side where it was like, no, 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 like I don't want to cause a ruckus. People are struggling on their own. I don't know if you grew up in a
God,
different way.
that definitely, because like, and I believe, at least in my own life, and for many people I've worked with, it's like that's like a survival mechanism, and
Mm,
we're constantly tuning into our environment and being very sensitive, and we don't want to like mess something up or whatever. And at least for me, it came from a place of like not wanting to maybe, I don't know. I think it comes down to like being worthy of receiving love, and you want to be perceived well in that person's eyes, and
right.
also it's familial. So even around Thanksgiving, I was observing different family and just listening to some of my family, and they would say like, "Oh, like growing up, I didn't want conflict and stuff." And I'm just listening to this. I'm like, like okay, you didn't want conflict, and then interesting, I have this pattern of not wanting to deal with conflict, and so it's
Hmm.
and then we can observe that and be like, like is that still valuable for me? Uh,
Hmm.
I think it comes down to that awareness, right? And the thing with the stones is, um, it really matters the place you're doing it from and the
Right.
timing. So that's where like the
Right.
comes in, because if the immediate reaction is like, "Oh, this person said this, and I can now cast this stone at them," it's like, well, okay, pause, like slow down.
And
Uh,
just waiting.
yeah, just like hold it for a moment. You can cast it, hold it for a moment, and then Steiner, he also teaches like a series of questions to ask yourself,
Okay.
especially on, if you're not sure, like if it feels like it could be something you're saying potentially out of place, or he says, reflect, is it true, first of all? Is it
Mm,
kind? Is it necessary? And is it the right timing slash setting place? So maybe it's true, kind, and necessary for this person to hear it, but is it necessary for them to hear it around all of their friends and this like really deep thing that might be hard for them to hear? It's like maybe wait, pull them off to the side, and then so there's a degree of I guess assessment and reflection, and not to say that this I think should take away from the spontaneity of life. And I think as we practice these things, it can become more it can be done pretty quickly to a degree that's not like we're like stopping and needing to reflect for like 10 minutes after someone says something. We can kind of gauge the situation relatively quickly and trust ourselves and be willing to make mistakes with it also, because that's how we learn.
Dude, I love that. Is there a way, is there something that list is called, or, is there, that's, I like to compartmentalize things.
Yeah.
Just because in my own experience, I've had to create those for myself as well. I have, I'm an eager person to like share something, especially when like, I study and I learn things, and then I'm like, oh, like, fuck yeah, like I have something great to say or something funny to say too. And I'm just like waiting, the conversation's flowing, right? And I'm just like, I want to say it, but it's not my time to speak yet. And I'm holding on to the rock. Let's just keep the metaphor going. And I'm waiting, but the time has passed. And then I had to learn to teach myself to ask, like, all right, is this still relevant to what we're talking about? Or am I going to have to let this one go? And it's like, oh, we're on a different topic. We moved on. It's like, fuck. So I've had to teach myself that, because sometimes we move on and then I'm like, wait, here it comes. Like, let me throw this in there. And then it just didn't flow with the conversation. And I made it about myself.
Right.
But I would like to create a name for like a thought process. I mean, of questions to ask yourself in just in general conversation or decision making.
Well, and it was coming back to Elliot Hulse. I actually remember him saying, not every good idea is meant to be acted upon. And so I do a lot of my social media very like intuitive, and I like to make it easy, say whatever I feel inspired to say. But I remember I was like, had this like really deep dream one day. It was actually this week, and I was gonna share something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was like quite confronting, honestly. That would have triggered quite a bit of people. Maybe it was like tough love they needed to hear, but I kind of deemed that like, maybe these aren't the feathers to ruffle today. And so I decided to, abstain from that message. And I think so sometimes we have these inspirations, and that it comes back to that reactivity, right? We can kind of step back and be like, maybe not.
Yeah.